Welcome to But I Digress, a cocktails and conversation podcast with your hosts, Warren Smith and me, Irish Stewart. Come on in, honey.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be at the moment. Welcome to But I Digress, a cocktails and conversation podcast with, of course, myself, Warren, and my wonderful great friend, Irish. How are you doing, Irish?
I am halfway through a bottle of wine, so I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Well, I'm a quarter of the way, so I'm trying to catch up with you at the moment.
Yeah, I got started a bit earlier. It's later in the day here for me, even though it's the day before.
Well,
so.
although I have to admit, I did have a small glass of Riesling when I had lunch, so technically it's actually a bit more than that. I had sushi and Riesling for lunch. I thought a pretty good combination.
That's an interesting mix there.
Oh, it's great. In fact, Alsace,
German-Japanese fusion restaurant.
Well, no, I actually reckon Riesling is a great match for Asian food. Well, that's been very generic, isn't it? But especially for let's say sushi or something. Well, I actually think it goes with almost any type of spiced food because, in fact, it was only not that long ago there was the French actually tried to market wine from Alsace, and they actually sold it overseas as sushi wine. It was actually the label. It said sushi wine, to try to match it with sushi. So, there you go.
Now, when you speak of sushi, how do you like your sushi? What kind of things do you like?
Now, this
when you
is
go
where
sushi, because it's still a broad term.
Well, this is the problem. I don't really know all of the names. I'm really bad at this. But I love salmon and tuna on top of that bed of rice. Now, that is actual, whatever that is called. And I do love it.
That is actual, whatever
Oh, that is actual
you
sushi.
Are right.
Okay. And also the egg. I love the egg. You know, the piece of seaweed wrapped around it on the piece of rice.
Okay.
Noah
loves that. My son loves those. Oh my gosh.
There's a limit though, but I do like, one or two. Tuna is my favourite on rice, but salmon would be probably after that. I do love now the rolls without the seaweed on the outside. So they're just rice on the outside, and they're often dusted with roe. The orange fish eggs.
Yes, but you don't like it. Well, don't they always have the nori, even if it's inside the rice roll? I'm just curious because
no, I don't think they do.
No, they don't always have that. Okay,
or maybe they do, and I'm just not wearing my glasses when I eat it. The honest truth, there isn't anything that I dislike. If you were to give me either a sushi or a sashimi platter, I will eat absolutely everything that's there.
So you like a sashimi? You like the sashimi, just the fish itself, or
I absolutely
without the rice.
Absolutely adore that with proper Japanese soy sauce. But the problem is, it's so expensive.
Well, it is to have it done properly, sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, you have to really love that to want to pay for it. Because, let's be honest, it's not a hearty meal, but it is delicious.
Well, that's the thing for me. I've often found it's a great lunch, a Saturday afternoon lunch if you're out and about. Rather than, let's say, a Saturday night dinner. It is my way of thinking. If I'm Japanese in regards to dinner, well then I'm thinking more Japanese curry or tempura or something along those lines.
I do love all that kind of stuff too. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the bento box where you get a little bit of like everything.
Yep.
The shumai and because I like a dumpling. I'm a big fan of dumplings. And I'm not really a sashimi girl. I don't really like the texture of the fish without the rice. But I do love the rolls, the spicy tuna roll. And I'm, as a basic white girl, I really do enjoy those California rolls, I'll be honest. I like the flavor of them. But those are, for me, that's like a snack. If I want a snack, I will get a California roll or something like that and just eat it. And then I'm satisfied.
Well, the nori rolls, so they're about, what?
The cones?
No, not the cones. They're
not
about,
the cone shape one now?
So I'll use American measurement here, about 6 inches long.
Okay.
And they're about only an inch wide.
Yeah, and sliced.
Rolled in seaweed, and they're sliced. In
Yep.
Australia, all over the place, there are little cafes, and it's literally just a window. You literally walk past a window on the side of the street, and they're all there. And what they do is they sell them, but they sell them in the solid tube, okay? And people eat them on the go. They just chew it like they would eat a hot dog.
Well, I like street food of like almonds,
and it's really popular here. They're everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And you especially you'll go into you'll go into the centre of Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane, and you will just see people walking down the street just eating the roll. They pour their soy sauce down the middle of it. And then it comes in a little paper bag, so it'll catch any soy sauce, so you don't spill it obviously on your clothes. And they just walk along the street eating them.
That sounds like a great way to do it.
Yeah,
actually,
it's like Australian street food. Like instead of slicing it up and serving it and eating it, at a table sitting down, you eat it as the whole roll while you're walking around.
That makes actually a lot more sense than having it sliced and trying to eat it with chopsticks while you walk around and trying to dip it in the soy sauce. And,
yes. Yes, that would be interesting.
I could do it. No, I really couldn't. I'm actually very clumsy.
I
would definitely drop that.
I would end up with soy sauce all down my front. My tie would be covered in bloody soy sauce. It'd be terrible, I'd have to start using my ties as napkins and to get that bad, So
you're gone to eat with somebody that insists upon using chopsticks, but they don't know how to use chopsticks, and the entire meal is almost just like cringeworthy, watching them desperately try to do it. Maybe I'm being really judgmental, but
luckily not.
I just want to take it, give them a fork.
I've eaten with people who don't know how to use chopsticks, so they've used a fork. Look,
I've eaten with people who don't know how to eat with a fork either.
Well,
they don't know how to properly hold a fork, and we've had this discussion.
Yes, but so I don't mind. The only thing is, the thing I hate is people who they use chopsticks, but they're kind of only 80% there, and so they kind of they use them all right, but when they get to any some sort of dumpling or something like that, they skewer it like they're harpooning a whale. You know what I mean? And they just...
It's a control issue. They'd rather stab it than grab it.
It's like Moby Dick there with the harpoon.
It's the men. I bet you.
Yeah, it is generally. It is generally men.
I'm going to keep the rest of those comments to myself that just popped into my head because while I found them amusing, I do feel like at some point, like I said, someone's going to be offended by me. So I'm going to just keep that in a little nightclub in my head there. That one.
Fair enough. Yes. Fair enough. But anyway,
I'm trying to learn my lesson.
But we've started digressing before we even really
That's what we do.
started. I know, but that is what we do because Irish and I are two great friends who basically have a drink or two and just chat about the week, the month, whenever we get together and we record it. So. So that's what we do, basically.
And why? We don't know. We just do. And
because we can.
Because why not?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's been some, I suppose we should actually say, of course, if you haven't listened to this before, of course, Irish lives in America. I live in Australia, so we are actually on the other sides of the planet. But in both our respective countries, there's actually been some big political news. Obviously, the January 6th, I was going to say discussions. That's not what I meant.
We're calling them hearings.
Hearings.
Yes, we're calling them hearings.
Are underway in the United States. And, of course, Australia has just had an election where the Conservatives have actually had the biggest defeat in their political history. That's official. The
Yay!
biggest loss they have ever
Can you hear
had.
us cheering from America?
The loss was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. But we can get to that soon. But I'm interested to sort of hear what's happening in America at the moment, because I'm not too sure if you live in America whether you fully understand what's going on. I know I get a bit confused by it.
Uh, which part of that is confusing you? I mean, because we have a list of
Well,
things we could discuss, but
I don't understand. Like, for instance,
yes.
if an Australian Prime Minister basically got a whole heap of a mob of people, like a mob of people together, spruiked lies to them and incited them to a point where they committed a terrorist act and tried to overthrow the government, and then it was found out that that said Prime Minister did nothing to try to stop them, even though the people around them were begging them to go on TV and call them off, and it turns out that he refused to do so. That Prime Minister would probably be in jail at the moment. So that's the bit that confuses me.
Well, I believe a lot of us are kind of confused by it. Unfortunately, and fortunately, in some regards, our system is set up in a way that our Congress is separate from our Justice Department. Now, the ironic thing about all of this is that that wasn't the case when Trump was in office, and this stuff was being, like, all the groundwork was being laid for it, even by the Attorney General, William Barr, who later said that he told Trump the whole time that all this stuff was bullshit that he was saying about the election being stolen. And he says he resigned over it, but what did he do? He still wrote a glowing letter praising Trump when he left office. He didn't come out and say anything about it until he was forced to go into the hearings and in his interviews. So not forced, I guess. I guess he did it of his own fruition, but I'm sure it was to avoid a subpoena. Now, they don't have to come in. They're coming in under the request of Congress, and if they don't come in, the Congress can subpoena them to come in, and if they ignore that, technically, they are supposed to be arrested, or something is supposed to happen to them. Supposed to have some sort of punishment, and that hasn't been happening up until recently. Now, there's a lot of stuff coming out that I think the majority of the people in our country probably didn't know, because I'll be honest with you, just like America doesn't pay a whole lot of attention about politics from other countries, and they don't know a whole lot about politics and the goings-on in other countries, a lot of Americans really don't pay attention or know anything about what's going on in politics in America. They see a couple of things or hear some stuff that their crazy uncle says, or that their grandma sent them through Facebook, or an email chain, or they're not paying attention because they're just doing their daily thing. They're going to the bank. They're trying to make sure their kids have food or and clean clothes, or like whatever it is. They have bigger things on their plate. And so we've got a lot of people that don't pay attention, and it takes a long time for anything to happen in this country. Which is funny, because we want everything to happen right now all the time. We can't go to Europe at all without being pissed off. What do you mean they're taking a siesta in the afternoon? Why is this place closed? I want my shoes redone now. We don't have a whole lot of patience for that, because we're in a country where everything, at least in our country, is like all the time. We want it right now, really fast. The quality doesn't matter as long as we get it quickly. Okay? And we feel like if the quality isn't good or we're mad about it, we can scream and yell at people, or maybe we just bring a gun and shoot them. And that seems to be something that is accepted here as the price of our freedoms in some groups. Now, like I said, a lot of the stuff that's coming out in these hearings is stuff that if you're on Twitter and politically involved in any way, or you're paying attention, you might have heard about a lot of this stuff. But the actual steps that needed to come from This is what happened that day. Let's go back and look at how we got here. They're really trying to show the American people the steps that Trump took to systematically, along with others, systematically overthrow our government through a coup. And where he was allowed to, or he was trying to allow even Mike Pence, who was his own vice president, who, let's be honest, you know how I feel about Mike Pence, and some things that I know about him personally. Yeah, he did the bare minimum that day, but thank God that he did. Because we could be having a very different conversation right now had he not had to watch his own back for the first time that day. I think he was shocked by it, but yet again, when people are out there screaming, hang Mike Pence, and Trump, now we have reports of him being in the Oval Office or in the dining room watching all this stuff, saying, well, you know, he kind of deserves it. Maybe these followers have the right idea. He still came out of all of it and didn't say anything against Trump. So they're still making their bed. Now, what's happening is all this stuff is being pushed out into the public for the first time in a lot of respects. And now what's going to happen is our Department of Justice really cannot say that they don't have the information needed to suggest that more investigations be started. And I believe that there are investigations going on currently. We've had a lot of things happening, but the wheels of justice turn slowly here. And sometimes it doesn't work out, especially when people are rich and powerful. So I'm hoping that that's not the case here. I'm hoping now that the Department of Justice will see the clues and will do something. Because if we don't do something, and we don't hold these people accountable for what they've tried to do, that is just an invitation for it to happen again, because this was really a dress rehearsal for the next time. Everything they got wrong this time, they're going to fix and try again. So we found out that, you know, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, two groups of paramilitary groups, had gone way up to the Capitol way before the president had even started speaking at the time. And I say the president, meaning Trump, unfortunately, at the time. Because everybody says, oh, we all went up because he told us to go up there. Well, no, they went up there and cased the place out hours beforehand. They had a British journalist that was embedded with them. We're getting to see for the first time a lot of video that nobody has seen before. And it's terrifying. And Fox News is here not showing it to their people. Having Tucker Carlson do a 90-minute episode without commercial breaks so that people wouldn't have a chance to turn over off of his show and you know, look and see what was going on. Turning away from the screen and looking at the people in the audience that were watching the hearing every time they showed video of the violence. That's, you know, I just don't understand how it continues to go on. But we're hoping, fingers crossed, for the first time maybe ever, some of these people will actually be held accountable. Somebody other than the minions that went in, you know, and I want them to be held accountable too, but I don't want just them to be held accountable, because literally our democracy is at stake here. And you made me talk about politics, and now I'm going to stop trying to do that.
All right. Sorry, my bad.
It's very stressful. It's very stressful. But like I told you, as a teenage country here, because we're still young, we think we fucking know everything. We're screwing it up. Okay? So somebody better step up and do the right thing. Or we are, you know, we're going to go the way of the dodo.
Well, can I give you some good political news?
And the wigs. Yes, please.
Oh, and the wigs. Yes, the wigs.
Yeah. Look it up.
I don't. Yes, I know who the wigs are.
Not you.
No, I know. But so of course, political news out of Australia is, well, I don't want to say it's all sunbeams, lollipops, and rainbows, but it's all sunbeams, lollipops, and rainbows. Over the last couple of weeks, some of the greatest political news to come out of Australia in a decade, basically. Where the Conservatives, who of course in Australia are called Liberals, don't ask. It's just the way this country works. But remember, traditionally, the conservative movement in Australia was kind of a centre-right. It wasn't actually a full-on conservative right-wing movement. It's only really become that recently, and I'm talking like in the last 10, 15 years. Before then,
something
it was
insidious going on.
yeah. So, but anyway, so we had the election about 2 weeks ago or something, and they started counting the votes on the eastern seaboard. Well, put it to you this way: they literally called the election at the same time. So remember, there's like 2 hours time difference at this time of year between the East Coast and the West Coast in Australia. Okay.
Okay.
Quite literally, by the time the polls closed on the West Coast, they were literally calling the election.
Okay.
So the voting hadn't even stopped.
Trouncing.
Right? Yeah. And it just happened all night. Every Conservative was just losing their seat. And it's either to the Labor Party, that's kind of like our Democrats, although they're much more left-wing than the Democrats. But they are our version of the Democrats. Because you've got to remember, our Conservatives are not as right-wing as your Republicans, and our Labor, which is your Democrats, are more left-wing than your Democrats. So... yeah, I know.
Imagine that.
I know. So, but anyway, the problem. So the Labor Party. So let's just call them the Progressives, just to make things. I'll say Conservative and Progressive to make things easier, so it's not confusing. So basically, the Progressives won, and they won in their own right. In other words, they won a majority in the lower house. That's where the Prime Minister lives. So Albo is now Prime Minister. Real name Anthony Albanese, but of course in Australia everyone just calls him Albo. In fact, even his Twitter handle I think is Albo MP. So
That's so funny.
So So anyway, so he is now Prime Minister, and another thing happened as well. The Green vote went up dramatically. I mean, dramatically, as in they held all of the seats that they held, and they actually added new ones to the parliament. Not only that, this new movement, which may or may not become a political party, a centralist party, we don't quite know yet, and it's called the Teals, and they wiped the Conservatives off the floor. They just kept winning seat after seat after seat. And what is a teal? Well, a teal in Australia, it's this new political movement. What it means is that in Australia, the colours for left and right are different. You know, in America, the right wing is red and the left wing is blue. In Australia,
these days, yes.
Yeah, the right wing is blue and the left wing is red. Okay. Now, what happens if you mix blue with green? You get teal. Okay,
true. Yes.
So what this movement is they're basically centralists. They're conservatives who believe conservatism has lost where it's going. It needs to embrace the green movement. So the idea was, let's put the two ideas together. Let's have centralist politics, where basically we have some conservative economics, but we have progressive social things, and we have green environmentalism. Let's put it all together into one movement. Wow, true centralism, and they were winning seat after seat after seat. One of them even knocked the treasurer. That's the number 2 person in the country. They lost their seat. They didn't get re-elected. They actually lost their seat, and they were knocked off by a teal. So this movement now is absolutely huge. And what it's basically said in Australia is that all of these conservative crap stuff we're not interested in. It's like, we want to talk about the environment. We want to talk about the cost of living. We want to talk about, all these other things, when the Conservatives are obsessed with talking about transgenderism in sport.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, the general public...
They're attacking children, too,
yeah,
with it.
yeah, it's like, yeah, so they're not interested in that. they say, no, the Olympic body is organised in that. Sporting, they're all organised in that. We don't need to hear what the Prime Minister thinks about transgenderism. Like, we want to know what you're going to do about the trade war with China and global warming. What are you going to do, right? And the government just sat back and said, we're not going to do anything. So,
Well, thanks for that.
Well, it was like the Conservatives went into the election saying, vote for us because we're the strongest economic leaders. It's all about the economics. They then went and spent the 6-week election campaign. That's about how long it is in Australia, about 6 weeks. They then spent the next 6 weeks never mentioning economics once. So you wonder why they fucking lost, right? So they are now politically in the wilderness, in the absolute wilderness. And Australia is pretty much now guaranteed at least progressive government now for at least the next 6 years, because they'll undoubtedly win the next election because the Conservatives are in chaos. They're still screaming about transgenderism when the progressives, the government, has moved forward. You know, like the Conservatives are talking about last year's news while the government's talking about today. And it was amazing to see Jacinta Ardern, the Prime Minister of Australia, and Anthony Albanese, they met last week. And they didn't just meet, they started hugging each other. Like, this is a whole new world for Australia. This is Australia throwing off the shackles and the yoke of the conservative nonsense. And we've just got news. Largest wind farm in the Southern Hemisphere is about to start construction. Awesome. Australia is now committed to a 43% reduction in carbon emissions in the next 7.5 years.
Wow.
That's huge. That's absolutely
huge.
Because the problem is the government's now got to catch up for 9 years of doing nothing. And they've now got to suddenly catch it all up. So, for the first time ever, the Minister for Women's Affairs is a woman. The Minister the Minister of Indigenous Affairs is Indigenous.
Imagine that.
I know.
What a concept.
And you ready for this? And I think it's 49% of the cabinet is women.
Oh, my God.
Is made up of women.
That's great. That's great. That's an improvement for sure.
Oh, yes. And we're now going to get what they call an ICAT, which is basically an oversight body to politics so they can investigate corruption within politics.
Well, that's a lovely concept.
So overdue. We have it in the States, but we don't have it nationally. So we're finally going to get that. And I'm ranting and going on too long. All I want to say is to the Conservatives, nah. And and it's like good times. Good times.
I'm thrilled for you guys. Actually.
It is. You know what I mean? It's like I saw somebody on YouTube who was talking about the election, and he said, you know what? You hear all of these people always talking about, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Germany. These are great. These are countries we want to model ourselves on. And then suddenly, and he said, you know what? We're one of them now. Like, we have a government which is no different to the Scandinavians. It's like, they're going to start making kinder free. It's like there's all of this stuff that's starting to happen, and it's only been 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, I think part of what people in the U.S. have been disappointed in our Democrats here when they get into power is they get a majority, but they don't go hard on to get the things immediately that everybody wants. They do, and that was a weird way to say that. Everybody wants more wine.
Yes, I will actually. Thank you very much. I will.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. I shall. I think the disappointment is, and I have said this before, is that conservatives here need to have a soul. They need to grow a soul. And our liberals, as they say, or our Democrats, they need to grow a spine. They never go hard to get stuff done. It's always, we want to work with the other side and we want it to be bipartisan. You know what? You don't negotiate with terrorists, I thought. And right now the other side are kind of terrorists. So maybe stop trying to negotiate with people that really want a huge group of our population dead or without rights at all. I mean, even if they're left alive. I just don't understand why we're expected to work with the other side. So I do believe at this point, I think it's great that you guys are doing what you're doing. If only we had that level of tenacity when we get in. And I know people are going to say something about this. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that and I'm voting Democrat. I have always voted Democrat. I'm going to continue to vote Democrat until something better comes along. But I can guarantee you it's not going to be anything further conservative of where our Democrats are. Because we keep being pushed, our middle keeps being pushed further and further to the right. And that's what's scary to me. Everybody told me I'd be getting further and further to, more conservative as I got older, and literally the opposite has happened. As I've learned more about the world, it's made me more liberal. So I would really like to see that happen here. And I'd like to see us go hard to get some stuff done. So I say do it. Do it while you have the time. We're running out of time now. And we probably are going to get demolished in this next midterm election because the economy is a mess. And like I said, people aren't paying attention.
But the thing is, the economy, and this is regardless of whether you're a conservative or a progressive or a green or whatever you happen to be, or a centralist, the economies of the world are having issues at the moment. Energy is a problem in the world at the moment. Prices on things like petrol, or you call it, gasoline, it's a world problem. It's not. And anyone who blames their president or their prime minister or their whatever you call, it's like you clearly don't understand what's going on. This is an international problem. Of
course, but isn't that what I told you and I tell you about Americans all the time, is that they don't know what's going on. And they only think when they go to the grocery store, their money isn't going as far as it did. They're really not paying attention. And if it affects them, then they care. So that's what it is right now. That's what we're up against. I hope. Well, I hope it changes at some point.
China has these mini trade wars going on left, right, and centre. That's a huge problem. That needs to end. And the thing is that this idea that Australia and we're hopeful that Australia's trade war with China will come to an end over the next 12 months. Because it was pretty much started by our last government. Our last government literally declared emotional war on China. And what did China do? They started a trade war on Australia. Now, the thing is that it actually has hurt China more than it's hurt Australia, because it turned out China needed Australia more than Australia needed China. Who would have thought? I mean, if someone had told me that 5 years ago, I would have said, "Get real." Well, don't. What's that line of Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation? Don't sass me. Of course. It's absolutely, it'd be ridiculous, but it turned out like all that happened in Australia is some prices went up a little bit, so you're paying 5 cents more for a cup of coffee now or something like that. In China, they were having blackouts because they didn't have enough coal to run their power plants.
We do that in Texas because they privatize their grid.
Well, that's it, yeah.
I'm not meaning to laugh because
I know, yeah. But the thing is that who would have thought that China would be suffering more? That this is the hope now that with a new government in Australia, and they've already had their first talks. They were unofficial, but they had their first talks. So, and that was 2 weeks literally after the election. So we're really hoping now that things will ease and it will actually help just everyone around the world if China gets its act together.
I'm going to push back just a little because when you say that you never thought that China would hurt more, China would hurt more than Australia.
Yeah.
I understand the country itself might not hurt more, but what I do know is that the people of China hurt more because the
Oh, yeah.
government and I know this because my mom did some business with some stuff that she had made years ago, and she worked really hard to try to find a really good Chinese company, but it was still difficult because the people that she worked with through and it was all through email and stuff like that. It was difficult to communicate, first of all, which is understandable, but it was obvious that they were very, very careful all the time with what they were saying. And a lot of times you could tell that they didn't have options. And so I do know that when things like that, what's happening is, and especially you know what, I think I might not be pronouncing this right. And if I'm wrong, I'm so sorry. Is it Uyghurs or Uyghur? I can't remember. And I'm so sorry right now because I've had 3/4 of a bottle of wine at this point.
Oh, sorry. You're going.
No, I was just, I know the Uyghurs. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say that wrong.
It's this group of people that they imprison simply because of their religious
It's
cultural
absolutely,
belief.
yes.
I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I do understand that most of the people who even work in the factories and things work under very harsh conditions, even if they're not down on a factory floor. They're expected to work a lot of hours. And for me, like the concept of communism is like pure communism, the idea of it makes sense because you think about sharing everything. Everybody shares everything. The problem is that it never goes along with that. It always gets corrupted by people because people are greedy and shitty. And so it turns into this authoritarian idea of what communism is. And so I'm not trying to tell people that I think that communist states are good. I don't. The concept of the pure concept of communism is a beautiful concept. It just could never come to fruition because people are human and they are greedy and shitty and will stab others in the back to get more for themselves. And so we can't do that. So we get countries like China, and a lot of times it's more authoritarian than anything. I think that's the problem. It's like
China. Look, China's not a communist
nation. Because people are going to
suffer.
suffer.
Yeah, China's not really a communist nation anymore. It's an authoritarian nation.
Under the guise of communism.
Yeah, I mean, it still uses some of the ideology.
That's what happens. It got warped.
It got warped.
Twisted.
But the Soviet Union, even at its point of collapse, was far more communist than China is today.
But they were still authoritarian fascists. I mean, they just,
Oh, yeah. I mean, Soviet Union was, I mean, look, it had a couple of good things.
Communism is an economic structure.
Yeah.
But it's not...
well, I mean, the one thing that's always been said about the Soviet Union is if it hadn't have been so worried or concerned about the concept of... You know how, like, in Christian culture, there's this idea of ministry. You know, how you must go on and convert people, teach people. And,
yes.
Yeah. There was this idea within communism that you must do the same thing. You know, you must convert people, convert nations. I mean, that's a whole concept, I suppose.
We do that with capitalism here, too.
Oh,
we
do. I mean, we do. That's exactly right. We do.
I'm not, Let's be honest about that.
But I think the problem is because it's kind of like written into the culture of communist doctrine. I think one of the problems with that came about that what was the Russian Empire would then become the Soviet Union, and it would then run this arms race, which the problem was if all of that energy, money, and effort had been put into the society rather than like the Soviet Union may not have been the most efficient nation on earth, but fuck me, you could honestly talk about and let's say you would take the authoritarianism out of it, right?
Sure.
If you could do that. I mean, I do understand that idea of a workers'
That's
paradise.
what I'm saying. It's the idea of pure communism is a beautiful concept. Yeah. Unfortunately, as a species, humans are not capable of it because we are too filled with greed and selfishness and just like, and also just terrible, terrible types of things that we do to each other for no other reason than we're just bad sometimes. And we can never have pure communism in that concept.
But the only problem with there is one problem though I do actually see with, even if you want to talk about perfect communism, like
there isn't any.
No. But just imagine, we could create perfect, right? Even in the perfect Marxist ideology, right, of it. So we're moving back to the 1850s now, or whenever, what was it, Dust Kapital was written. The problem is that there's no allowance for initiative. Like, the initiative is not something which is rewarded within the system. Like, so the problem with that is that although technically speaking, when you're talking about the masses, especially too when you're coming from what was kind of a nation which was, we'll just say economically kind of behind the rest of the world, the problem is if you take a lot of modern countries, you need that individualism. Like a lot of the great steps forward come from those ideas. And the problem is that those ideas are held back, in that sense. And that's the only problem I've really got with it. Everything else I'm actually kind of okay with, to be truthful.
But the ideas are held back because people want glory for themselves instead of sharing it with others. And that's the thing. In the idea of it, in the pure concept of it, even anybody that had an idea that was for the greater good that they could create would be lauded for their idea. They just wouldn't get more of what people had than others simply because they had an idea that was for the greater good, any more than the person who simply labored to make the sandwiches did. However, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be praised and given, recognition for what they did, but they shouldn't have more to eat or, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Their health care shouldn't be better because they had a mind that came up with something that was for the greater good. And when they came up with something that was for the greater good, that should be then split equally with everybody. I think the problem is a concept of the individualism is the desire to be rewarded for being special. And I get that because and I'm going to paraphrase this, but it came from somebody else, and it was, I think, a Twitter post years ago. I don't know. It was some kind of a tweet. It's like, of course that you're a beautiful, unique snowflake, but darling, it's a blizzard out there. Who's going to notice? Everybody, and I'm paraphrasing it, but everybody is a unique and individual, beautiful snowflake. Everybody is. So why does one person get to be lauded more or have more to eat or have better health care simply because they had an idea? It should still be beneficial to everybody. So I think it comes down to, as a species, humans want to be special and stand out. They want their individuality not only recognized, but rewarded with material goods, because here in our country especially, and in our society, we have built an entire thing around your worth is based upon your material goods. And so how do you get material goods? You're not special if you have the same material goods other people have. You have to have better material goods. Therein lies the selfishness in our system. And our genius is only rewarded if we are selfish. Because otherwise everybody has everything we have. How are we special then? Sure, we had an idea, but if that idea got me a private jet, but it got everybody else a private jet too, who fucking cares? What good was it for me to create this idea? And that's the problem for me in our society, is that ideas and sharing them with humanity for the greater good is not a thing. having ideas, and sharing them with others for personal gain is a thing. And it is the only thing for a lot of people, especially for people that have things. Why do they have things? Because having things is important to them. To them, having things shows their worth and value in this society. Not that they had this amazing idea that could give free electricity to the entire globe. No, they'll kill that shit because that won't make them special anymore, and that won't get them more than the average person has. Even if they never have to work a goddamn day in their life. I'm going to tell you, my stepfather, rest his soul at this point, he's been dead like 6 years now. He bought an idea that he worked with a guy from NASA to develop. It's a product with a prototype. It went kind of far, but he couldn't release his own ego enough to try to put it out there in a way that might expand it. It's a really good idea. It saves water, like a lot of it. But in order now to get it done after his passing, we'd have to have $100,000 or more in R&D money, and nobody's going to do that. You know why? Because there's nothing actually beneficial to them in the long run. Companies want to waste water. The cities, we actually had a deal here in Orlando at one point to do some testing because it kept the water towers from having to be dumped repeatedly. Now, that's a lot of water in a water tower. And I'm not going to say which company it was, but it's a big company here. And they had to dump a lot. The city and the county came to this company and made this deal they couldn't refuse to keep from taking this contract with this company that my stepdad had made. You know why? Because the city wouldn't make as much money on the water sales to this company if this had gone through. And that was really bullshit because, let's be honest, water is a precious commodity. And we are wasting it in grand numbers, especially here in the U.S. I'm sure we are around the world.
Oh, yeah.
A reason to waste less water should have been lauded, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was kept, and it was shut down, and it was kept quiet because somebody stood to lose money. It didn't matter if it was better for society. It didn't matter if it was better for our city. So I think we do that a lot as humans, especially here in the U.S. And I think that that's what capitalism, especially in the form we have here, especially, is the root of evil. It's money, it's selfishness, it's greed.
It's one reason why I like what the political systems that are used, let's say, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Scandinavia, Germany, well, in fact, most of the Western European nations anyway, although that's moving east at a very quick rate as the Eastern European countries are basically Western European countries now anyway. Do you know what I mean? Basically, that split from Russia is gone. Russia has proved, unless you're Belarus, no one wants to be friend with Russia.
Shit.
Yeah, I know. So, but basically, what system do they all choose? You know, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, Finland, Germany. Like, what system do they use? It's social democracy or democratic socialism, whatever way you want to describe it. It's that concept that, yes, it's capitalism, but we inbuild within the government universal healthcare, universal education. We have safety nets for those people who fall behind or get caught out, you know. Now, when we say safety nets, yeah, they're not living like Riley, you know, smoking cigars and drinking cognac, but
don't need to do that.
No, I know. But there's enough money to pay the rent, put food on the table, and buy new clothes. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what I believe is the best system that we have currently. I'm not saying there's not better systems, don't get me wrong, but currently I don't believe in the, let's say, go down the communist path, because we've never been able to create pure
no, there's
communism
no
anyway.
way to do that
Right.
for it to make sense. There's absolutely not.
But the pure capitalist route that we see, especially in the United States and all the way, it seems to be through Central America and South America, not really and in a lot of Africa as well, not really my personal choice, to be honest.
No.
But it's a little bit. I still remember, and I've said this a lot, so anyone who knows me will have heard me say this a million times. But basically, the difference between the countries, like I've just described, the difference between the two of them. In fact, it once been said, what's the real difference between Australia and America? And that is that in America, the individual comes before society. In Australia, society comes before the individual. And I think it's like, for instance, you talk about, you had that horrible massacre a couple of weeks ago in the United States. But then again, I know you have them all the time. I know you have them all the time.
Yeah.
Now, I think we had got to like our 12th gun massacre or something like that. We had a really horrible one, especially there were a number of children actually in this one rather than just adults. And then that's
horrors, imagine.
Right, I know. And then that's when the government said, right, no more guns. And it took 90 days to get all the politicians on board, to get the bills written, the bills passed through government, and within 90 days, guns were being collected. And here's the joke of it: it was done by a conservative government, not by a progressive.
But your conservatives are our liberals, so let's not go there.
Well, especially back then, it's actually been said it was basically gun control and East Timor, in other words, giving East Timor its independence from Indonesia, probably two of the greatest things that the then Prime Minister John Howard ever did. If he's ever going to go down in history, because he did a lot of bad shit, but if he's ever going to go down in history for doing good things, wow. Those were really good things. Because gun violence in Australia plummeted. We've never had and this was it 1997, I think it was, that it happened. We haven't had a single massacre since 1997 to 2022.
It's amazing how limiting access to guns reduces gun violence. Shocking.
Yeah, and I hate hearing fucking conservatives in America say, Australia's gun ban. No, we don't have a gun ban. You can still buy a fucking gun. The difference is there are limitations. You can't buy an AK-47.
It's not a fucking free-for-all. That's the difference. Right.
If you want to buy a gun, that's fine. You can have bolt actions, lever actions, pistols. That's all fine. But you can't have centre-fire semi-automatics like AR-15s, AK-40. You can't have them. They're banned. They're gone. They are illegal, except for special organisations, security organisations and things like that, right? But otherwise, they're all banned, okay? But any other sort of gun, you want to buy yourself a lever action, that's fine. You can go and buy a pistol, buy a Glock. You can buy a Glock. There's no problems at all. Yeah. But you have to go and get a licence. In order to get a licence, you need a police check. You need an emotional check, like a psychological check. You need then I think there's something like a 90-day waiting period. Then, you have to go to school. You have to go to gun class where they teach you how to operate it. Yeah, no, they're actual classes. They teach you how to operate it, all the rest of it. All of this stuff has to happen. And then it is literally 3 or 4 months later, you get your license and you can then own So the thing is, no one stops you from buying it. It's just that you can't walk into a shop and walk out within 30 seconds without a license. Right? That's the difference. So I'm ranting, I'm sorry, but...
No, you're not ranting. No, you're saying what you guys are doing, and that makes sense. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, but our states are all different, and red states have very lax laws, and even the stuff that they're saying now after all those kids in Uvalde getting killed, which is the second mass massacre of children in a school. Of course, once kindergartners and first graders got killed, and nothing happened. I knew nothing was really going to happen. So they've made another couple of small changes. We'll see whether or not it goes through. Apparently, John Cornyn, one of our senators, walked out of talks today. They literally don't want anything real to happen because they're all being paid by by the gun lobby. So, and let's be honest, I'm a gun owner. We've talked about this. I own 5 guns, okay? I own 2 single bolt action rifles, which I love to shoot, and I have 3 handguns. I have a 32, I have a 9mm, and I have a 45 Magnum. Don't fuck with me. I will kill you. But and see, the thing is that I know how to use them. I was in JROTC in school, in high school.
Yeah.
And it was before I moved to Tennessee, which you'd think I'd learned that in Tennessee. No, I learned it in Florida. I didn't, and the reason I went to JROTC, which is the Junior Reserved Officers Training Corps in high school, was because I was not athletic and I made a fool of myself one too many times in PE, and that was my only option. But what I did learn when I went there is that I am very good at certain types of things, and I am an excellent marksman. Now, whether that I can do it with a long bow if you want me to, I can do it with a compound bow, I can do it with a gun. I don't keep weapons in my house though, because I don't live in fear. I like to shoot them. I think it's fun to shoot. But I don't carry guns around with me because I am not a person who is afraid of getting murdered somewhere. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's my problem. But I want to know why it's okay for somebody to carry, like open carry, an AK-47 like weapon into Subway or Kroger's or the grocery store because they think it's their right. Well, what about my right and my kid's right not to be fucking terrified of you? I don't know if you're some sort of a crazy person.
But
carrying a fucking gun. What are you doing?
But my other problem with it, actually, and this is in all seriousness, if I lived in America in an open carry state, my major problem with it all is that the person who's carrying the weapon, okay, one, how do you know what their intentions are? And they're openly carrying
That's exactly
a weapon,
right.
right, as you said.
You don't know.
But number 2, if they're meant to be there to protect themselves and the public, because the only way to stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun, and I'm sounding like John Wayne, is the... mind you, I love his movies.
It makes me think of a rap song from the 80s. I'm sorry, I have to...
Sorry, John Wayne was an arsehole, but I love his films.
Oh, God, I know.
I know. But the other thing, too, is that, as I've heard, police, you asked any police officer outside of the United States, not in the United States, but outside of the United States, and they will tell you to a person, the last thing they need is an untrained amateur with a weapon in a hostile weapon situation. But it is the last thing on earth they need.
Do you even know what happened here with the kids from Uvalde from the elementary school?
Well, I heard that
they had 13 cops standing outside in the hallway, not going into the classroom because they were worried about getting shot.
And I heard that was their fucking SWAT team. Their police special forces team refused to go in.
I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm not going to say for sure, but
they
did post some pictures of their SWAT team a couple of weeks before. And a couple of weeks before, they had all done training for an active shooter situation in that very school.
It's not,
Okay, and these guys, they didn't go in. So if even the good guys with the guns won't go in because you know what they said? Well, we have kids at home. Fuck you. Nobody made you become a cop.
Oh, yeah, but see.
You chose that shit.
This is my whole...
And you chose not to protect these innocent people. That's your fucking job. Taxpayers are paying you to do that literal fucking job.
Isn't the American slogan of police serve and protect?
They're protecting and serving the fuck out of black people in our country.
No, but
Or the
I agree.
brown
This
kids,
is the
even
thing.
brown children. They arrested parents that were trying to go into the school to get their kids. When they went in and got their own fucking kids out first.
How the fuck do they murder someone like, was it George Floyd? I hope I got his name right. Like, the idea of murdering George Floyd, but, you know, and suddenly, we're meant to defend them in that action for some fucked up reason. How the fuck do you defend a police officer who murdered somebody, clearly, right? But then, when they're actually asked to do their real job, which is actually, I hate to say this, it's like saying to a soldier,
to protect
what do you mean you don't want to go to war? I'm sorry, that's your fucking job.
Well,
do you know what
exactly.
I mean? It's like, yeah.
No, I agree with that.
You know?
It's kind of like our military now. You're not being drafted.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you chose that. So people who become cops choose it. Nobody is making them go do that. They're not being forced to become cops. So here's the question. If you are not willing to put your own life at risk for innocent people, especially fucking children in a goddamn elementary school, if you're not willing to do that, then why did you even become a cop? Because you wanted to pull brown people over? Like, I really don't understand. Where in your mind is this hero part of you if you really are in it for the right reasons? What could have happened? I'm not blaming all cops, because please understand, I understand that there are cops that get into the profession because they really want to make a difference. I just don't know how long they can work in that environment without being having a change of the way their minds work about innocent people and what their responsibility is. I just see time and time again, we have cops that are showing over and over again that they're not really out there to protect everybody. There's a lot more going on. They're definitely not out there to protect everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak because I have to admit, in Australia, for instance, except there are still some problems up north, I will admit, but generally speaking, the police forces in Australia don't seem to be anything like the ones in the United States. I'm kind of like quite stunned by all of this. You know, it's like,
I think we all tend to be, but then as a white person, I go, is that my problem that I'm stunned by this? Maybe I needed to pay more attention because it's been going on a long time here, a really long time. Yeah, it's a weird, fucked up kind of thing. Well, and you know what? It's a stressful topic. So what I need is more wine. So I do want to take a break for just a minute.
I think we should do that. I definitely think we should do that because I definitely we should do that because when we come back, I think we should change the subject a little bit.
Absolutely. I want to talk about TV.
There's a lot of TV we want to talk about, and we need to do that.
Bit.
All right, no worries. All right, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Timey-wimey, we are back. We just stepped out of the TARDIS. So, anyway, we were talking...
I'm sorry, I distracted you. I made you hungry for food. We talked about food.
All I will just say is the TARDIS did divert to a farmer's market for 30 minutes before we came back. But anyway, we did talk a lot about food. But anyway.
Food.
But we did say that we were... Foo? No. We did say that we're going to change the subject a bit, and we are, because some big things happening, well, at least from my perspective of what I enjoy in television, and that's not Love Island. How do people watch that shit? I just don't know. Anyway,
sometimes mindless things, and I'm not going to judge, but it's not my jam. Let's be honest. I don't.
It's not mine.
No.
No, it's not mine. But some beat stuff. Now we have to talk about. Well, first of all, Star Trek. Have you seen any of the new Star Trek? Strange New Worlds?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not. And I am desperate to watch it, but I have not watched it. And I'll tell you why. I've been distracted with other things, with other shows.
Right.
So I haven't gotten a chance to see it. So I'm actually really dying to see it. It's next on my list.
It's to me, it's Star Trek Next Generation. That's where we're at, right? It's
okay.
It's Star Trek perfection.
So
it's exactly
you're saying I'm
where
going to
we should be.
lusting after Jean-Luc Picard? Is that what you're telling me? Because that's what I was doing.
Well, we have Captain
Next Generation.
Well, it's Captain Pike here. Not quite
well,
the same.
Okay, well, you know what? The guy who's playing Captain Pike, I could be down with that. But no, I was a very big fan of Picard himself.
Well, he's just an amazing man. I mean, both Picard and the man who plays him. I mean,
it was just even way back in the day.
Yeah, it just I can't fault the man. I mean, seriously, and I've forgotten his real name now. Oh my God, that's terrible.
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick
I
Stewart.
know that because it's the same as my last name.
Oh yes. But Sir Patrick Stewart is.
Yes,
I mean, he is just, well, as he says, don't worry about that. It's just a piece of paper. But it's I just love him.
It's very fancy though, and that's exciting.
Well, I know. He's just, I think he's brilliant. I just love him. I
do too. I've always loved
so
him.
brilliant. I know.
Enough gushing.
I know. All right. So all right, we won't talk Star Trek.
No, I have not seen it, but I did love the actor who's playing Captain Pike, because isn't it the same actor that was playing Pike in
Discovery.
Kind of the reboot? No, not just Discovery, but also wasn't he also in the reboot of the Star Trek series in the films with Chris Pine? And am I wrong about this? Am I wrong?
No, different actor.
Different actor. Okay, yeah, that's my bad.
It's
my
the
bad.
same. It's the same Christopher Pike from Discovery season 2 of Discovery.
Okay. No, you're right. That's who that was.
So we've
I like him.
Oh, he's great. Also, they've brought back a number of different characters from original, like we're talking William Shatner era. So we have Uhura is back.
Oh, I love Michelle.
Right, but it's not obviously not Michelle Nichols, but obviously.
Sorry.
But the character is back, but she's an ensign.
Oh, okay.
So she's only just joined Starfleet. Other characters, Spock, of course, is in it. He's only he's a lieutenant. Obviously,
is it the same actor from Discovery?
Yes, same actor.
Okay, good.
Pike is obviously Captain Pike from Discovery. Number one, who of course was originally, who we all just know as Number One. Yes, she has a real name, and that they do actually announce her real name in the show, and I've forgotten it, so I apologise. But we all know her as Number One, because everyone calls her Number One, because of course that's the joke from the pilot of Star Trek, when where Michelle Barrett, who played that original character, who would go on to be the computer's voice in Star Trek.
Oh, I remember.
Decades.
Yes.
But who played Number One originally in the actual pilot. And so the big joke, of course, about Strange New Worlds is that she's always just referred to as Number One rather than her actual name and rank. So they've continued that on. Nurse Chapel, who of course was in the 3 years of the original Star Trek, she is back, but obviously cast as a much younger woman because of course this show is set 20 years before, or at least 15 years before the Star Trek, the original series.
For the beep, beep,
Right,
beep,
yeah.
beep, Sorry.
Right, so the actor who is playing her is somewhat younger. She's an Australian, so woohoo! And she's also,
right on.
oh my God, check out that haircut. Oh my fucking God. I would just say, I know that peroxide blonde hair, it destroys the hair, it rots. I understand all of that, and I know...
It doesn't actually have to now.
Doesn't it?
No. If you pay enough and go to the salon, they actually have stuff that doesn't melt your hair.
Oh, okay.
If you do it on your own, it melts your hair.
Have a look. Just Google the new Nurse Chapel from Star Trek. Oh, that haircut.
Why are you getting me excited? We've already talked about food. You know how I am.
Oh, no, that fucking haircut is just, oh my God. Also, the Doctor, who I've forgotten his name, he was an on-again, off-again character from the original series. So we've got a lot. We don't have the original ensign, that the red-haired lady who was in the original pilot. For some reason,
I'm looking at Jess Bush's hair here. I see what you're saying.
Oh, you're looking at, yeah. Look, is that a haircut or is that a fucking haircut?
Well, you know what? There's only certain women in the world that have the physical power, to pull that off,
right.
And she's one of them, apparently.
Well,
I am
clearly.
Not.
I don't know.
Oh no!
I don't know
I'm
if I'd
not
say
going to
that, but...
pull off that haircut.
Oh, I don't know about that.
No, because you have to feel that haircut, and I would not feel that haircut.
Wow. Okay. But anyway, it's anyway.
It's amazing on her.
I shouldn't base the whole show on a fucking haircut, but anyway. But the story.
I understand what you're saying.
But I'm still a boy. You know what I mean. She's a countryman after all. But anyway,
okay. I'm human. I'm not dead. Right. It's just
But the character who I absolutely have fallen in love with is the security officer.
Like 79.
She is so good, so good. Clearly an English actor. I don't know her name, but she is so good. Absolutely love her. I reckon she's the standout character of the series, to be honest.
Okay.
It's really an amazing character. But yeah, so anyway, must say, and the other one too, because before we move on, really, really quick, is Prehistoric Planet on Apple TV. Seriously, if anyone...
the documentary with the dinosaurs?
Yes.
I have not watched that yet. Yeah.
Now, we all remember Walking with Dinosaurs, which also then gave us Walking with Beasts, Walking with Monsters, Walking with Humans, and then we also got a whole heap of TV shows that went from them, and all the rest of it as well. But this is different, because this is now being made 30 years, with 30 years more research. And with CGI far better than the old one. And it's amazing. Also, the concepts of what they're talking about now, with dinosaurs being covered in hair, feathers.
Feathers.
Many of them being warm-blooded, not cold-blooded. It is absolutely fucking amazing. We
learn better as we move forward.
Now
we
remember,
think we know everything, and it's obvious we don't.
Now remember, this is not finite. This is just where we are at right now. But it is just absolutely amazing. And some of the stuff, as with original Walking with Dinosaurs and Walking with Monsters, some of the stories that they tell are based on a fossil record, like the swimming Tyrannosauruses. This is an amazing thing. We now know that Tyrannosauruses really did swim, and they explain how they actually have learnt this. It all comes down to toenail carvings in. Look, I don't want to give it away.
Don't give it away, man.
It's absolutely amazing, and the beauty about it, and much like Walking with Dinosaurs, is that whenever they put up a theory about, they say, this is the way this animal behaved, if you then click on the link to show where that research came from, they explain to you how the paleontologists came to this idea, right?
Well,
So
I do love that kind of stuff, yeah.
right. So in other words, they're not just saying it; they're saying we believe this is what happened based on this evidence, and I think that is absolutely fascinating. And I'll shut up now.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
One of the, like, some of my favorite times being spent with my kid are times when we're watching stuff from science. The thing that I do try to instill upon him is that science and the truth behind it at this point is never going to be finite. There's a moment where you have to recognize, yes, this is as much as we know now. It's different than we thought we knew 20 years ago. That doesn't mean we were wrong then. We just evolved, okay? And there will never be a time when we will understand all of science. So there is never anything that I would ever say to him, this is simply the finite thing in science. But we watch shit tons of different things that hopefully open his mind and remind me all the time that we don't know anything, really, as we learn more and more. There's a series of videos on YouTube. They're called Kurzgesagt, and that is the German word, and I may be saying that wrong. I hope not. Kurzgesagt, I believe, which means in a nutshell. You know, Germans.
Yeah. No. I know what you're saying. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a YouTube channel filled with animated explanations of concepts within science. Excuse me. Different things that might be difficult to understand, string theory and things like that. And don't get me wrong, of course, it's not all-encompassing, but it gives a really great overview. And what it does, at least for Noah and I, is stimulate conversation about string theory and different things, you know, different dimensions, different things like that. I love that kind of stuff. Science that we don't know, but we keep learning more and more. And that's kind of what you were saying about that. We're learning more and more all the time. So we just, you know what, Warren? Holy shit.
Well, I'm quite stunned that now.
I finished the bottle of wine and I probably went a little too far.
All right, okay. Well,
I forgot what I was saying at the end of that.
Well,
I'm not going to even pretend that I'm not.
All right, well, we can come back in. But one of the things I found amazing was that they were saying, like, if you watch this series, the raptors, which are a beloved, passed down.
They're
I think
terrifying.
they're terrifying, but beloved by children the world over for some reason.
Because we put them in movies.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the whole idea is that what they're now saying is that the Jurassic Park and even the Walking with Dinosaurs interpretation of raptors, forgetting about the claw, they're quite convinced that they're 100% correct with that.
Sure.
But they got it all wrong. The raptors, feathered animal, probably. Most likely a feathered creature. Actually, because of its size and because of they're really, and also simply because of now fossilized skin. Well, yes.
Ostriches.
Yeah, but fossilized skin. We've now got fossilized skin.
Yes,
Can you believe that?
imprints.
I mean, yeah.
No, I do.
And so this
We
idea
haven't
that
been around that long.
Yeah.
And we haven't had the capacity to look for this stuff for that long. So we're just actually starting to find things.
But anyway, to move on from that, the one thing that we have to talk about.
Yes.
The true dinosaur in the room.
I'm sorry.
No, Magnum is exactly right.
That is the true dinosaur.
Yes. Magnum. Oh my God. Seriously, it's over? It's over?
No, Warren, that's what I wanted to tell you. Okay,
Right,
so
okay.
I told you that it had been canceled, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it has been.
Yeah.
However, it might be being picked up by another network, and they might be putting it on a streaming service. So you know that sometimes the shows we love and love to hate, okay, they get canceled, they get picked up by somebody else. So it looks like that might be what's happening with Magnum. And you know how I feel about that show. It's awful, and I still love it so much.
I view it as a guilty pleasure. Do you know what I mean? It's a guilty pleasure.
That's exactly what it is. It was like watching the Royals when it was on.
Yeah, it's. I'll
it's terrible, but I loved it.
There are things about the modern Magnum that I don't. I love the way that Juliet and Thomas work together and run a company together.
Well, yes, but
I kind of like that. But at the same time, I kind of liked it when they're frenemies. You know what I mean? It's like, because I loved that idea in the original one. You know, where they were friends. They were friends. They cared about each other, but they hated each other at the same time. I really liked that. Like,
do you remember? I'm sorry.
No, go on. No, you go on.
No, I was in Australia. Did you guys have the show Moonlighting?
Oh, yeah, that was a very popular show.
Okay, popular. That show was like at its biggest moments when I moved from Florida up to Nashville in Tennessee. Okay, and I remember watching the show. It was a hugely popular show. It was during its first run. And the thing that people really wanted desperately was for them to get together. Okay? Now, here's the thing that I have learned. When that happens, the tension is broken.
Yep, I agree.
And it's over. Okay. Sexual tension is everything in a story. And once those characters get together, the sexual tension is broken. Okay? It's literally the best thing for the people that want each other desperately and never go for it. Okay? Now, while that might be torturous to the people involved, let's remember they are made-up characters. Okay? And if they were real human beings, they might give in. But what other people love to see are the people who don't give in. They want that tension. That's fun.
Well,
the fun is the flirtation. The fun is the teasing. The fun is that once you give in to that, the story is over.
Well, I'll put it to you like, do you remember there was a show, well, actually it was a very famous show because it actually created even more famous shows, and that was a show called Jag. Do you remember Jag, the TV show?
I know about Jag. I didn't watch Jag because I don't watch military shows.
Because it was also kind of ridiculous the way it was. I mean, you know what? Sure. Seriously, you're going to airlift a lawyer onto a submarine to? I mean, for fuck's sake!
Why not?
It was kind of. It was ridiculous, you know. But it spawned on the NCIS series. Right. Yes. And the NCIS series has boomed. It's been incredibly popular. Did you know next year, NCIS Sydney, they're actually moving the show to Australia. There's going to be an NCIS.
You know why? They've killed everything else here. Okay.
Well, I know.
I can't take any more bullshit fake cop shows that want people to believe that cops are going to solve a mystery and a murder within an hour. Or even 2 days.
I know.
Okay?
CSI. Fuck me. And the other thing about CSI, you know that if I was a real police officer, okay, do you know the thing if I was a police officer, do you know the thing that would really piss me off about CSI is that if you watch that show, the forensic fucking officers not only do all of the gathering of all the goo and gump and all the rest of it, and they do. But then they interview the people, they hunt down the people.
Care.
But here's the thing. What does the fucking detective do? All the detective does is at the end of the show put the handcuffs on the criminal, right? It's
Well, they get to take that's their collar, man.
Oh, it's like, I mean, I'd be furious if I was a serious watching it, but I know it's just a TV show. But anyway.
No, it's a TV show, but you know what it does? It does a disservice to society as a whole.
I know.
Okay?
Because
we keep thinking that the police are going to do this, and they don't. Cops don't give a fuck if a woman is raped. Okay? I'm going to be honest with you.
Remember, don't judge every police force. But remember, don't judge every police force by American standards, because they're not all the same.
No. I'm saying here in America, because
no, absolutely. No, I hear you.
And I can only base that upon the people that I have had personal interactions with, and I can tell you that it was more than one cop, and I can tell you that I was questioned more than once about my own personal behavior. And how I led to what happened to me happening, and then in the end,
no, we don't need to. We don't need to.
No. I'm just going to say this, and I understand what you're saying, but we do have a thing here in the U.S. where we like to pretend our cops are doing something when they don't have the initiative or the resources to actually do something. But we put a lot of money into TV that makes people think that we're doing something different. That's the problem. And now we can move. Thank you for allowing me.
No. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
I've said on Twitter, too, I don't want any more cop shows or first responder shows that fill people's head with garbage. Because they don't have a realistic vision of what's going on.
Are you okay with non-American cop shows?
I've never seen a non-American cop show.
Are you serious? Never? Ever?
Warren, I live in America.
I still thought you
got...
What
do I have here on TV that is that?
mean, okay, well, first of all, the British, the Swedes, and the Danes love their police murder mysteries.
We don't have that.
Obsessed by it. And you've never seen. Wow. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize that.
Because here's the thing. I probably don't watch that stuff anyway. Right. I don't like to feel upset when I watch TV. And I will do that when I watch our regular news, when I'm trying to be updated. And so when I watch TV, sometimes, most of the time, I don't want to watch anything real. I want to watch fake things that are
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Have you watched The Boys? Let me ask you this.
No, not yet. I haven't. It's in my playlist, but I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. Let me say to you.
It's in the playlist, though.
Let me tell you something. One, Carl Urban. Oh, my God. Secondly, okay, I've loved him since Xena. We've had this conversation. Okay, he was everywhere there. I love this guy. I love that he's now got his New Zealand accent out there for everybody. And I love
that. Yes.
Oh, I love it. And I love that this show calls out so much fucking hypocrisy. And I'll be honest with you, it pushes the limits to where there are moments where I take this sharp inhale and I'm just not sure whether I'm just literally responding, oh, fuck. Because you just don't know how else to respond. And you know what I love about that? I love that it makes me respond like that. It's not over the top, but it's hard to watch sometimes. But it's fucking brilliant. And I'm really thrilled to watch it. I'm excited about this show as I watch it. But it's difficult. It's difficult.
So we just need to quickly pause just for a second.
Yeah.
If that's all right, just quickly pause. Just 1 second.
Sure.
Sorry about that. There was an Australian creature trying to get in the house, and no, it wasn't a snake, so don't worry.
Everything in Australia is trying to kill you.
One day I want to do a podcast just about how that's so fucking not true. But anyway,
you could do that on the other one I'm going to do, the ghosties, ghoulies, long-legged beasties, and things that go bump in the night.
It blows my mind. People say, "Oh, Australia, everything wants to kill you." Have you ever been to South Africa? Like, fuck me, you know. Well, you know what I mean. It's just like, I don't know why there is this, you know. Anyway. So we didn't really get a chance to seriously talk about Magnum. We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, but you and I talked a lot longer than they get to hear, and I'm not sorry.
We'll bring Magnum up next podcast. So because anyway, all right. So we've run out of time, basically. So we've hit 90 minutes, and this is our promise. We'll try to stick to 90 minutes. So anyway,
I didn't make any promises. Who have I promised? Did I promise you that? I hope not.
I just make this stuff up in my head and pretend it's real. I'm very Trumpian like that. I just have this idea and say everyone
Warren.
believes it.
No.
No, I'm joking, you know.
You and I would not be this good of friends.
I know.
You said you know that.
I know. All right, so anyway, thank you for listening to our cocktails and conversation chat. And well, this will wine this time. Yeah, I know. Anyway, all right. So, thank you. Anyway, so, thank you for listening. We'll be back next time. And it's good. What's that old two Ronnie's line? It's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from him. That makes no sense unless you've ever seen the two Ronnies. So don't worry. And I doubt anyone in America has ever seen the two Ronnies. But anyway.
It's
anyway.
okay.
So, British humour. Probably one of those famous British comedy shows of all time, actually. The two Ronnies. Yeah, it probably was, actually, to be truthful. I would actually say the two Ronnies probably bigger than Monty Python, although Monty Python would go on for decades, but at its time on the...
Warren, are we still recording?
Oh, we are. Sorry. All right, we have to say goodbye. All right. So I'll just say cheers, guys. Chin chin, and
Bye.
Bye.